Hey there folks, so it's June. What better time, what better weather than to start carving Santa Claus. Here's that Santa Claus I started to carve, and I think it looks pretty cool. It's completely different from most of the other Santas that I do. This is done on a 1-inch corner, so you can see there's a flat back there, and I carved some other ones. I like the caricature style hat, the very caricature eyes. It's completely different from the other ones that I do, much less realistic. And then at the bottom has a swirly beard. And of course I made a stencil to lay this guy out. Of course you don't need to use a stencil, you could just try your hand at freehand drawing it. And of course links to all this stuff is going to be in the description. You'll find the stencil, some of the tools that I used. Let's go ahead and start laying this guy out and show you how to carve it. Okay, so here are those carvings nice and close so you can see this guy. The one thing I didn't put on him is any eyebrows, so he looks a little spooked, maybe a little surprised. So I changed that up on this one. This one has a mouth, eyebrows, and a little tuft of hair there. It's obviously not painted, not completely finished, but I wanted to show you guys what the bear carving looks like. And here's a very similar one. So these two were made with a stencil. This was my first attempt, and here's that stencil. So great thing about it is that it's reversible, so if you want to put the ball on one side you could do it like this, or you can turn around and do it the other way. So this little divider in the center helps you align it to your block of wood, so like that, or take it the other side and you see those tabs help keep it in place. Make this guy, I use a 1-inch block piece of wood that I cut down the middle, you can see that, and it is 6 inches tall. So you don't really need to remember that measurement, you just need to hold up your stencil to it and it'll give you the exact measurement. So if you're taking it to a bandsaw, just go ahead and strike that line up here, make it flat across, and make your cuts. Or with a saw or whatever it is. So to lay it out, just follow and trace as much as you can. So this would otherwise be a fairly complex drawing, but because of this stencil it's easy to repeat over and over again. And you know, I think everybody likes Santas, so, and these will make great ornaments because they don't weigh very much. You know, a 1-inch piece of wood cut in half is pretty light, so. But drawing this guy is a little bit of a challenge. So this is the only part that's a little tricky. So this beard, as you can see, it actually does go up along the edge over here. You can, by all means, cut it off right here. I mean, is by that. But normally what I do is I don't include that part, and there really is no better way to do it with a stencil. So I didn't know how to explain that without or how to convey that on the stencil. So anyway, there we have it. And trace as much as we can. Great, now let's do the other side. So that's one side right there. Let's match it up. So you just match it up on the top and do the exact same thing on this side. Dummy. This one might not be as clean. Let's see what it's doing. Oh, geez. Let's erase that. I don't know what happened there, but got out of control. Okay, so let's put that back on there. You know, that's probably what actual sketches of carvings look like. You know, kind of have a rough outline of the drawing. At least that's what mine used to look like. It was just like 3-year-old doodles. Okay, and of course I drew that same line over here, which is probably going to happen to a lot of folks, but don't do that. Right here, just continue that over there. Right, so disregard this line right here and that line right there. In fact, you can see where I drew it on this one too. The lines are still there, so that's fine. If you do cut it into that, well, hopefully, you know, it's not that big of a of an investment. So, okay, the last thing here that we're going to do is probably just connect some of these lines. You don't need to connect them, but it might give your brain a little bit of an easier time trying to figure out what's going on here. Okay, cool. I really like this mustache. It's kind of whimsical. So I like to start at the nose and just kind of take that line down and up. That and up. So you're just taking it until those cheeks intersect with the nose. Right there. And I'm going to remove a little bit more material over here. And then I'm going to reconnect that mustache. Right, so pretty much I get paranoid as soon as I remove a line, I want to put it back on there. So there it is. There's that mustache again. Okay. I imagine a lot of folks probably have that same anxiety. Okay, and then the next one is going to be the top of the nose. So here the eyes are going to rest on top of the nose, as opposed to in a typical carving you would have the eyes right next to the nose. So here's another cool thing about this design is this hemisphere that you see here, that's pretty much what you're going to carve out for the eyes. So if you can get to the edges of those lines using your knife, then you are golden. Or stay inside of them, it doesn't matter, you know. But that's going to be our eye plane. Yeah. Okay, like that. There you go, you see? Perfect. Okay, now we're going to remove this material right up here. So I'm going to start going downward. And I'm going to go upward. Okay, and I'm going to go essentially until that line right there and just about flat, you know. So there we go, like that. Always keep your pencil handy and draw that line back in there, and this one right across as well. So these aren't that critical, but the other ones kind of are, okay? And of course, let's draw in the hat. You want a bit of a rounded brim. You don't necessarily want it to be that point, but you know, it happens. Okay, so there's a couple things that we could do now. I think I'm going to switch over to the V tool and go, let's see, let's outline the face. How about that? So we're going to start on the brim, the lower brim, taking a V tool. This one I think is 60 degrees, and my file, probably the best V tool I've had. And I'm just going to outline, follow that line right there. Same thing for the upper brim. And let's do the side of the face. So this one I carve right on the line because I want to leave a little bit of meat for that the hairline on the outside. Okay, just take it to the edge of the nose there. And same thing over here. Okay, there we go. So you see, got rid of the lines, but we, in their place, put some some V-tool lines. Okay, so now we're going to go to the edge of the nose, and I'm going to come in straight perpendicular to the back. So right here, making sure that if that knife slips, you don't cut your finger. And now, like that. So I'm separating the nose from the cheeks. There we go, like that. And the other side. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Excellent. So let's get back to working on those eyes. So I'm going to round this over just a little bit more again. Okay. Now, those cheeks over here, I'm gonna bevel them up like that. And the same thing with the nose, I'm gonna start to shape that nose a little bit. I'm gonna sweep it upward like this. He's still gonna have a very boxy nose, and that's perfectly fine. But, okay. Get rid of that line. Get rid of this hook at the front. Just kind of round it over. Now I'm gonna do one of these. I'm gonna take the corners of the nose and I'm gonna pull them upward a little bit. So probably not as steep as this one on the left. There it is. And that gives it a little bit more of a dynamic nose. Okay, like that. Like that. Now just kind of shape it to something that looks good. You know? You don't want it to look like a hook. You don't want it to be too pointy, but then again, it's just a caricature, so it's perfectly fine. Okay, and like we did on the other side, bevel this side upward a little bit. Okay. Maybe you want to take the top of the nose in a little bit. So this is not a very realistic nose, so it doesn't, you really can't go wrong with it. Besides, the nose is not really something that people are going to look at that much. It's going to be mostly the eyes. So don't worry too much about it. Okay, so let's get the hard part out of the way, which is the eyes. So in this case, I'm going to make this spot a little bit larger, and I'm actually going to prepare a little bit more by, show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to pull the forehead back some. So that means I need to sink my knife into here a little bit. And over here just a little bit as well. So I need to separate the temples. Okay, so pull that forehead back. Right here. There we go. And pull those temples in. Right here, and push this hair back just a little bit as well. Okay. Here. Now we're just shaping that forehead. Okay, now I'm going to round over this section right here. Okay, I think that's a good spot to start doing the eyes. So you can see they've already kind of made themselves. All I got to do is create this almost like a V-tool line, but not really a V-tool. So you really can't go wrong with this part. So what I do is I make these kind of like a weird M, very drawn out M, like that. And like that. Okay, there you go. It's almost like somebody should make a stencil for that. Well, the thing is that, I found that any shape that you make for these, it'll look good. So I didn't really feel it was necessary to, but maybe I will in the future, who knows. Okay, so now we've created that line, outlined it with the knife, and now all I need to do is separate it. You see, I just come in with my knife and remove that little sliver of wood. You can probably come in with a V-tool as well and take off that little bit. But then you're still gonna have to come in with a knife and give it a steep cut anyway, so yeah. Okay, that looks pretty good, you see? Okay, so the only other thing is now on the outside of the eyes, you need to also carve it out so it doesn't look like it's a cave. Right here. Kind of smoothing this part out. Okay, and the other one. There we go. Okay, and now down the middle as well. So just to separate the eyes. Or you can keep them like that, you know, together. Really, it's after you paint them that's going to make the eyes pop, not so much this carving. So I don't necessarily tend to carve eyes, like the actual pupil and iris and all that, because, I don't know, I feel like there's just too much to go wrong. And look at that! That's how the eyes are made. So you can see, now we actually have some shape there. Excellent. Okay, now we can carve the rest of it. Let's obviously get rid of these pencil lines. Just shave those off really quick. There we go. Boom. Okay. So, let's, I guess since we're already here, let's go ahead and do the mustache. And we'll do the cheeks as well. So I tend to do the harder part first of any carving because, well, if it messes up, then I know early on that I need to get a new one. But if I do the hat and maybe the beard, which are not as critical, and I still have to do the face afterward, well, there's still a lot of pressure on, so I can't really, you know, enjoy the rest of the carving. Okay, so for this, I'm just going to score it with a knife, very lightly. There's very little material right here, so don't really go crazy there. And I really like these low cheeks. Okay, so okay, and the same thing with the mustache. And I hope you guys have noticed that I'm using my left thumb as much as possible to guide that knife. So this is the dangerous part. Whenever you're on this side, the knife can slip off like that. So I try to keep my fingers away from the edge there. And that's where I tend to use my left thumb the most to really push that knife through. So knife control is a very real thing. And you gotta learn how to control the knife so that it's not a danger to you. So, okay, cool. So let's go ahead and start. This is essentially a relief carving now. So now we're just going to separate all the components from each other. So the cheek from the beard and the mustache. There it is. Yep. Let's see. So we're going to take this beard back just a little bit. That and this hair right here, we're also gonna separate it just some. Okay. Now, I also want to round over this cheek just a little bit. And there's not much there, but you can get a lot done with the edge of your knife. Sorry, with the tip of it, I guess. Okay. Same thing for the mustache. I also want to get rid of those step lines right there. I think it's because I came in with the V-tool first and then with the knife. So, there we go. That looks better. Okay. Alright, and let's do the other side. So right here, it's already separated. And the same thing for the mustache on this side. There it is. You're really dealing with slivers of wood in this case because it's so tiny. Okay, so I think that looks good for the face. You know, you could always touch up the nose a little bit, make it less square and whatnot, you know, but once you get maybe 2 or 3 of these under your belt, then you can go ahead and really do some more finesse to it. But anyway, those look great. Maybe this mustache needs to be separated a little bit more on this side. Okay, so let's move over to the hat now. So the hat, you obviously need to separate it here, and here, and here. So, okay, there, and we're just going to start to shape it. So you can see these cuts on the side here, I kind of did at a 90 to the back, whereas this one, I just came parallel to the back. So there we go. Okay, let's do the profile. So we're just going to go around and kind of trace that line that we have there. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but this will kind of give you a sense and a reminder that it needs to be a little jagged. So let's go with that. And over here, probably the trickiest part is to get this ball. Let's do this. Let's see what we got going on over here. Okay, that looks good. Alright, let's do the ball. This one, let's take it back some over here. And for the ball, I like to use a V-tool and just get right on in there and take the line back. Because it turns out cutting end grain with your knife is not the most fun. Okay, let's separate that ball a little bit more. You can make it larger, you can make it smaller, you could put the ball somewhere else. It does not matter. Okay, and let's see what else we can do. So now we have to separate that ball just a little bit more. So, come in like that. Okay. So this part is kind of a choose your own adventure kind of thing, but you know, hopefully the stencil will guide you a little bit. And shape this ball however you want. Now I found that for laying stuff out and having the lines be more useful, doing it on a corner is actually more reliable than whenever you do it on a flat surface. So like folks always want things in the round, but if you put it, you know, like you would typically carve something which is not on a corner, it actually ends up being more difficult to keep the lines on there and to use them as an actual reference. Anyway, I guess because when you start in a corner you're already closer to the round profile, whereas typically when you start with the square one you have to get it to round. Okay. Alright, so there it is. Now we're just making these facets, and all I did was outline right here And I'm taking these lines pretty much as far as I can go over here, and I really want to have like a representation of like a floppy hat, right? A really jagged looking hat. So this one over here, I might give him a little bit more. Yep, there it is. And probably right here, I'll take off as much of that flat surface as I had. And maybe here, give him a little bit of a swoop as well. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. And carving end grain. It's like the one true test that your knife is doing what it needs to do. Okay, and it's your choice whenever you want to stop here. You know, if you don't want to do any more tinkering with the hat, if you think it looks good, that's your choice. I like to have a good amount of depth between the features, because that gives it a little bit more sense of effort and work that went into it. But really it just means that I came in with a knife and I pushed a little bit harder. Okay, now I'm rounding over this hat. Okay, I actually also want to round over the corners here. One thing I forgot to mention here is you should probably separate the brows here. So using your knife, you can swoop it like that if you have a thin enough knife to do that. If not, then you can use a number 7 and kind of get in there. And let's see, we should also probably give him some eyebrows because he does look a little spooked. So with the V tool, just come in and give him some short eyebrows. Nothing too much. Alright, let's see. Is that too much? You can always just paint a little bit of gray on there. But and there's a number of ways to do eyebrows. This is just the one that I choose to do. Okay, that was good. Alright, I don't know what you guys think about that hat, but I think it's pretty near done. The ball is a tricky one to really wrap your head around because it is, you know, it has to look like a ball from the front, from the side, any which way you look at it, so. Oh, that might be too much there. Oh, best not touch it, mess around with it anymore. Looks good. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Okay, I'll take that. That was good. Alright, now let's go ahead and do the beard. So the first thing I'm going to do is do this profile. So just take off as much of this wood as I can. Okay, round it over some. And the other side. There we go. Okay, so now it goes around and loops back in. So now we're essentially gonna remove all that stuff and we're gonna have to redraw it all. So best to kind of keep in mind what it did. So like this, and I'm just going to there. So remember, this piece right here went around and came back in. So maybe one more. Okay, good. See, just keeping a hint of that line is enough to make your brain remember what things actually look like. So, go ahead and draw it in. Right here. Right there. And back. That's good. Let's do this top one right here. Okay, so now I'm just going to come in with the V tool and outline that. This is where it gets tricky because you have to turn the piece multiple times. You really got to have some good V tool control. Okay, so I'm going to do this upper section. And do that swoop. Okay. So, like that. Okay, excellent. So now let's go ahead and start shaping everything but the actual swirl. So we're going to come out here, give it a little bit more of a shape. So we want it to be a little bit round. Okay. Right here. Maybe pull this in just a little bit. Cool. Okay. Now you could leave it like that, or you can give it a little bit more depth. And to do that, just bring your knife and follow that curve. So be strategic about how you use your knife here, because it could very easily slip on you. So I am keeping my other hand well and clear. It's almost like I've had one too many close calls. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is separate the two. And I also keep in mind that the outer part should overlap the inner part, but you know, easier said than done. But look at that, that's already making a big difference. And if you can, try to keep in mind the direction of the grain as well. Right? Once again, whenever you do this swirl, it's kind of just a gamble. Okay, but right here, let's see what we can do here. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so grain direction right here is very important. Look at that. That looks pretty cool. I think I'm going to call this guy Swirly Beard Santa. Okay, I'm happy with that swirl. There's really no need to belabor that too much. Just go ahead and clean this up, take off all that end grain fuzz. Okay, give it a little bit more shape. You know, take off those square edges on the beard. You know, I was actually surprised that there were no tutorial videos on a swirly beard on YouTube, sorry. So this may be the first of its kind. I'm pretty excited. Alright. Okay. Let's take off any stray pencil marks. Let's clean up this mustache just a little bit on the underside. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Look at that. Clean up the eyes. That looks pretty cool. Look at that. So they look very similar. Nice. Okay, and obviously for the back, I'm gonna do, just gonna gouge the back. So this is a sweet new tool that I got, a number 7, 10 millimeter. So it's about half an inch or so. Well, 10 millimeters, not quite half an inch. Anyway, and it has a bent neck. So not really that useful in this sense, but for other sort of carving, the bent neck is really, really good. But I like it because it takes nice, wide, light shavings, but it still gives a very good texture on the back. And I used to sand the back of these, but I just would never get around to it because I do one carving and I was like, well, I gotta bust out the sander and all that. So now, after I'm done carving, I just take out this one tool and I can do this by hand, kind of without having to go through too much effort. Mental effort, that is, right? This is still plenty of effort. And here you also got to be mindful of grain direction. So let's see, it looks like it's, I don't know, it does seem like it's tearing out just a little bit. Let's see, oh yeah, that one works much better. So in one way, it usually works better than the other. So you can see over here, I don't know if you can actually, there's very light tear out. And there really shouldn't be, but it's just because I'm taking these light shavings that's the reason why. And there we go. Now this figure is complete. So I'll go ahead and oil it and then we'll paint it. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you guys make plenty of these guys because they're super easy, super light, and make great Christmas ornaments or gifts. So I hope you enjoy, and see you next time.